Hello and welcome back to the second part of our roundtable looking at work at height. We've discussed in the first part a little bit around sort of culture in the industry. When we look at work at height, what do we think safety culture actually means? Eleanor?
It's a very hard one to define, isn't it? So the term safety culture gets bandied about all the time. I think it's more than being safe because you don't want to lose your job or you want to satisfy your boss or because you know it's important and you know what the rules are. It's more about understanding and believing and living it. It sounds all very touchy-feely, but it's got to get you in here.
Yes.
It's not just going through the steps. It says that on my piece of paper, that's what I'm going to do. It's got to become very personal to the individual. It's very much all about teamwork, about believing that nobody should get hurt, that you are responsible for yourself and others, making sure that everyone goes home safely. I think when we think about the personal aspect, it's understanding the ripple effect as well. Certainly if anybody's ever heard Jason Anker speak, he talks very much and very, very well and very emotionally about the ripple effect of how it affected his children and his family and his marriage and his parents and all of that. I think if an organisation, be it a trade association or a contracting company, can get that throughout their organisation or their company and get everybody to buy in to the fact that it's a very personal thing, and that it can have very far-reaching impacts, then you've got your safety culture. That's what should drive you. That human beings are the most important thing over and above any economic or production or any of those kind of values. We employ human beings, and human beings come to work, but they come to work to be safe, and they come to work to go home safely at the end of the day, back to their loved ones and all of that. And I think if you can package all that up in a very nice kind of way and spread it out to the troops, then you're onto a winner.
Yeah.
The issue that we have is the smaller companies are not taking up this issue and imparting the culture of going home at the end of the day after a day's work. Their attitude is quite often, we've got to get the job done as quickly as possible and as cheaply as possible. And if you don't change that mindset, then I don't think you have much of a chance of raising the bar, to be honest with you. And the only way we can do that is by education, training, and the use of technology and apps that are available or coming online and that sort of thing.
You mentioned Jason Anker. Jason Anker is one of the ambassadors of the No Falls Foundation, the charity is set up to deal with falls from height. We play the Jason Anker video at the start of every Ladder Association training course for the simple reason that, stuff we said before, for those who are sent along to a ladder training course, they very much feel at the outset, this is a waste of my time and I'm just ticking a box. When they see the Jason Anker video, they realise that's why you're here.
Very powerful.
Correct. We in the Ladder Association have been running a campaign over the last 6-8 months called the Get a Grip campaign, and it's get a grip on ladder training, get a grip on ladder safety, and it's essentially putting across the message that it's time for us to accept and realise people should be trained to use ladders because they're every bit as dangerous, some may even say more dangerous than other work at height equipment. But we also recognise and realise nobody really likes to be preached at. We don't really want to be preached at and told what we should be doing, what we shouldn't be doing. So we need to try and press as many buttons as we can to get the message across in whichever way we can get it across. So we've just commissioned a further video from Jason Anker's daughter, which is Abby's story. And Abby's story tells of the aftermath of not just how it affected her father, and not just how it affected her, but how it's now affecting his grandchildren. And these are the sort of things that we need to do to get people to understand where we're coming from. It's not just about, you know, you might get hurted, it's about the life changing, the ripple effect, and it's not just, you know, in the case of a matter of weeks or months or years, it's lifetimes.
These stories don't go away.
They don't. And I've said this to people before, the numbers are frightening, the numbers are horrifying, and when you look at the number of fatalities, it's terrible, it's unacceptable. When you look at the number of serious injuries, it's terrible and it's unacceptable. But what people don't realise is, generally from work at height and falls from height, it's generally not a minor. It's generally not a minor injury. It's generally a major injury. It's going to affect the rest of your life. And if you take those numbers and add to them year after year after year, there are a lot of people out there whose life has been changed and continues to be changed by fall from height.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's not overly relevant for falls from height, but my father was in the construction business for his whole life, and 40 years after his exposure to asbestos, he unfortunately lost his life, and that's you know, part of me, part of my DNA, something that I pass on to my children, something that I pass on to friends as they're doing DIY projects. And again, it's not falls from height, but it's you know, it's understanding those risks.
It's a personal stories, yeah.
Completely.
There's another aspect to it as well, which we've difficulty trying to weave into the story, and it's to do with, we generally are engaged with, and we're talking about how these things affect people in the working environment. We have not even touched on the domestic environment. There must be, I could not even begin to guess how many incidents of that nature are there, because we cannot get access to that data either. We used to be able to get access to the data via the, that's right, but that, although the data is still gathered, it's not published. And certainly, I mean, we've raised that via the APPG and our colleagues at ROSPA, who have been campaigning to get that back on, because, as I say, from our point of view, we look at it, you know, very, very clearly. Yeah, our remit generally is in the working environment, but it applies, you know, the falls are every bit as hard in a domestic environment.
What do you think employers can do to sort of transfer that knowledge into the home environment? Because obviously they're not responsible for it, but the workers go home at the end of the day.
If you're an employer in a solicitor's office, I don't think you have much training in working at height, so you can't impart that knowledge to someone when they go home to do a DIY job. I'm sure steeplejacks and, you know, the other high-risk employees will use a similar amount of knowledge when they go to do a DIY project. They'll make sure that they have the right equipment. You know, they'll be less likely to take a shortcut. But if you don't have that training in your workplace, you're not likely to take it back home with you, are you? Yeah. The idea of, you know, the large DIY stores, you know, don't know why they can't be doing a little bit more on some instructional videos on basic DIY use of working at height equipment, something of that nature. I think as, you know, the construction industry, or, you know, it'd be very difficult to impart that knowledge to the domestic client, to be honest.
And it goes back to culture, doesn't it? We, as a contractor, I want operatives who are safe, full stop. I don't want operatives who are safe at work because they have to be, and then at home they do whatever they want. One of the best cultural tools that I've seen in an organisational context actually is from ExxonMobil. We do a lot of work for ExxonMobil, and they have implemented a scheme called LPS, which is the Loss Prevention System. And it talks about a continual risk assessment. So they give their employees and their contractor operatives a toolkit, and there's 7 tools, but the particular one that I think is particularly relevant is called the SPSA, the Safe Performance Self-Assessment. And it is to do with this 24/7 hazard perception, risk assessment, continually asking what is the worst that could happen to me. And it's a very good tool in the workplace because it's non-written. So it is this mental discussion, constantly assessing if the workplace or the work environment has changed, constantly assessing if you need to stop, have a bit of a think about what's going on and readjust what you're doing. But then they talk about taking it home as well. So when you drive out the gate at the end of a working shift, you're still using hazard perception, you're still assessing the risk. And they bring in information, so say bonfire night, they talk about, well, what are you going to take from your SPSA at work home to bonfire night, for an example, and that goes throughout the year. It's a very, very powerful tool. And you talk to anybody at any of the Exxon refineries, and you know that their safety culture isn't down here, it's up here.
Sure.
It's starting to get here, not just what it says on a piece of paper, it's starting to get them.
We've sorry, go on.
No, I was just going to cover one brief thing, which is part of the MSA core is every presentation we give, we have to start with a safety message, and that could be on anything. And the last three that I can remember is wearing sunscreen, ladder safety, and Christmas tree lights. So very simple things, but you know, some of those things straight to home.
And people are thinking about safety at home.
Completely.
That's the kind of employee you want.
You've got that mindset sort of set. But this also touched into a question I was going to ask, which was, do we need a major review of work at height culture? And if so, what should it include?
So we have the work at height regulations. We have CDM, which has been recently updated and is a key driver. Can we do more? Of course, we can always do more. Education, you know, driving that culture from the top down, as we've discussed. I like to keep things relatively simple and, you know, spreading that very simple message that disseminates through the companies that we present to. So.
And there's some fantastic work being done, isn't there? You only have to listen to some of the things that go on in industry. There's some fantastic stuff being done. Maybe it needs to all be pulled together somewhere centrally. I mean, you think about the HSE, they've had their funding cut by, is it just over 40% in the last 10 years?
Yes.
There is not the money there for them as a body to pull things together. That's ideally where it should sit, because there's some wonderful work being done. There really is.
Anybody else?
Yeah. I do think, as you have said, there has been some really good work has been done. And I don't want it to sound as if we're being negative all the time, because the UK definitely is one of, if not the best performing in this sector in the world. Yep. But it doesn't mean to say that we cannot do better. It does not mean to say that we cannot get to the stage which we are at just now to say. I mentioned before, I've been in this industry, working in industry for 40 years. Since the day and hour I got involved in it, falls from height has been the #1 cause of fatalities and serious injuries all that time. And certainly I, accessing this forum, the APPG, you know, Falls Foundation, are trying to join this stuff up to say we need to make that not the case. We need to make it not the case. And even to the extent of us, and I've kind of explained this to people before, there was a time, again, when I first came into the industry, when it was perfectly acceptable, in fact, not even perfectly acceptable, it was expected that on a Friday afternoon, lunchtime, down the pub, a couple of beers, and drive home. Yep. And if you had been caught by the police, it was considered that was pretty bad luck. That was really pretty bad luck, and goodness sake. Now, in the space of a fairly short period of time, that is totally and entirely socially unacceptable. We just would not accept it. I would like it to get to the stage with unsafe working at height that we have the same approach to it, that we have the same view of it. And I might also add then, throwing something a wee bit controversial here, and we did mention the APPG, maybe it's time for us to say this hard to get to group who will not listen, who choose not to listen, who perhaps don't care. Maybe we need a different approach. We need to have all of the good approaches of, you know, nudging them in the right direction, get them to understand this could have an effect on you and your family and your children, your grandchildren. But maybe there's just some of those who will not be told. And maybe we should introduce a fine. There should be, if you don't listen and you don't care about yourself or about other people, maybe we need to hit you in the pocket. Now, I'm putting that out there. I don't know how favourably that will be received. But sometimes when you get to that last, you know, obstinate group who will not move it forward, that's the only thing that will make them pay attention.
There's enough industry guidance out there that's free of charge. You can go onto the NASC website, you can go onto the HSE website, you can download just about anything you want on working at height. But these guys are not taking up the opportunity to get that information, even though it's freely available. And I don't understand why they don't want to do that. Surely they want their employees, their operatives, to go home at the end of the day. Surely they want to do a good job for their client. Their client doesn't want to have issues with someone having an incident. So yeah, there will be those type of people that Peter refers to that are just obstinate and have absolute no care or duty of care for their employees.
Do you think that the HSE should do more then? I know that we've talked about the fact that they've been, they had their resourcing cut.
It's a difficult question. I personally, personally, I think there should be more inspectors in the field, and putting these people, putting these people to account. There are far too many incidents that go unreported, because they don't want to be prosecuted, and they'll put someone, stay at home for a couple of days, sort yourself out, and come back to work on Monday type of thing. And there's a lot of that goes on. And I think we need to get to those people, but how, when you've given them all the tools that are readily available, I don't know how you can change their mindset.
I think trade associations are a fantastic tool as well. Obviously, I sit on the the council body for Atlas, the trade association. I cannot remember, I've sat on the council for 11 years now, I cannot remember the last time we had dialogue with HSE. We have had dialogue with HSE, but not regular, continual dialogue. That surely would be an ideal way for HSE to start talking to industry. Having an identified HSE representative that can start that dialogue with trade associations, that can then disseminate the information out to their members. Still doesn't get that swathe of people underneath who aren't responsible contractors, aren't members of trade associations, aren't all those things, but it starts that dialogue going, because there is a lot of conversation to be had.
Do you want to come back?
Yeah, the HSE have 2 inspectors on the NASC Health and Safety Committee, which produces guidance for health and safety within the organisation, within the scaffolding industry, not just the NASC, but the whole wide industry. And they have a member that sits on the technical committee, which produces technical guidance, which again is used throughout the UK and worldwide. So we do have these people on board, and their knowledge is fantastic. They do have a great deal of knowledge.
And see the dividends that you're getting. So you're a large trade association. We're quite small, and it would start to pull in that smaller subset.
I do think that, we certainly have looked at it from the point of view that we are very mindful of the fact that HSE are short of resources and they are under pressure as far as resources are concerned, that both mean in terms of manpower and in terms of financial resources. One of the reasons why the Access Industry Forum was formed was so that the HSE could have a direct dialogue with the entire industry without having to go around 11 organisations. We have also been at pains to point out to our colleagues at HSE, with whom we do have a regular dialogue, mainly at the Access Industry Forum level, but also at PASMA, Ladder Association, these other ones. We have tried to say, look, we do not want to make your job more difficult. We want to make a difference to the number of falls from height, and we are trying to do that without it being critical of the HSE, because we're not critical. We are on the same side. At times, I certainly feel that they're hamstrung, that they cannot do the stuff that we like to do, and that's one of the reasons why we went down the APPG route, because what we're saying is we need to get to policymakers, we need to get to the government, to the politicians, to say it needs to come from here. There needs to be a change, and the changes are those that we've outlined in there. And even when we're talking about going down the route of maybe it's time for us to perhaps apply sanctions, apply penalties, we're not suggesting that that should necessarily fall under the remit of the HSE. We're suggesting, or certainly I'm suggesting, that could be under civil, similar to how they subcontract or they basically deal with parking and parking offences, that you could have the same thing. That would be self-financing, that any revenue it generates would go back to the charity to do more, to get that virtuous circle going, to prevent or to reduce the number of falls from height.
This sort of touched on to a question that we spoke about much earlier, which was around getting workers to disclose information confidentially without any repercussions. Obviously, it's, you know, if there is the possibility of penalties at the end of it, I mean, how do we create a situation in some of the industries where it's harder for workers to feel that they can do this? What can we do?
It's your cultural thing again, isn't it? And it's those very, very woolly concepts of trust. And I think, certainly from dialogue I have with my operatives, they want to know that something will change. They can report and report and report, but if nothing happens at the end of it, then they're going to stop reporting. So they're fine to have buy-in, but they want to see things improving. And they've got to, again, it's that dialogue, isn't it? They've got to understand that they give the information, but the people they're giving the information to are going to pick it up and run with it, are going to strive to make things better. Very, very hard to embed in an organisation, never mind a whole industry. Yeah.
Alan?
No, I have to agree. You know, we get the information back. As I say, we produce an annual report. It gives a lot of information on that, but it is only the people that are regulated. It's the unregulated scaffolding contractors that we don't get the information on, and they're less likely to report it because they're for fear of being prosecuted. But if you're a trained and competent employee, would you really want to work for that type of organisation? Would you rather work for a company or organisation that treats you with respect and will give you the backup that you require? And if you do see something happening, will change their procedures to suit, as Eleanor said. I think if you work for the terminology cowboy company, that is not going to change. Yeah, you can tell the manager, the boss, the owner, whatever you like, but if his attitude is that just get the job done as quickly and cheaply as possible, they're not going to implement any changes.
I think it also comes back to how, as we stated before, having the data around. We all know statistics don't lie, that there are fatalities, there are issues out there, but actually understanding where they're happening. So, you know, a percentage of those will be happening during construction. Some of them will be reactive maintenance and as the building is going through its life. And I think that the fear being is we can build the building safely, but also how do we manage the smaller companies to understand that they're going up to a live building and they need the correct the safety equipment. And these companies may be very small, single figure personnel companies, and again, it's disseminating that information to those as well as the big corporate ones.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I think you will be aware the APPG took evidence from 2 anonymous reporting systems. One was CROSS, the confidential reporting on structural safety. The other one was CHIP, which deals with aviation and maritime anonymous reporting. There are examples out there. That's only 2 of them, and I have a meeting within the next day or so to look to see the technology behind that. And as we touched on before, there is no reason to me, as I look at it, why this could not be rolled out in work at height. And the protection for anyone who's concerned about blame being attached is that you report it anonymously. And as we touched on and I've discussed previously, the important thing is for us to get the data on the precursors. If we can get the data on the precursors, we can hopefully prevent serious injury, hopefully prevent a flaming fatality, and that's what it's all about. But we need to get our hands on that data at the precursor stage rather than waiting until it's too late when it's already happened.
Yeah, that's a good point. Is there anything that we haven't touched on that you feel that we should include at this point?
Closely interlinked and intertwined with the all-party parliamentary group on working at height is the charitable incorporated company, the No Falls Foundation, which has got 3 main objects. The first one is to educate and inform, and to educate and inform from an impartial viewpoint. And I don't mean that impolitely to all of us here. From our organisation's point of view, we are generally working on the principle you are going to be using scaffolding. NASC is your point of call if you want information on it. you're going to be doing your steeplejacking, speed atlas, towers, ladders. There are no organisations who are promoting the avoidance of work at height. It's not a remit to do it. So part of what the No Falls Foundation will be doing will be commissioning research into what are the causes of falls, what's the underlying causes, and that will undoubtedly be fed by the good stuff that hopefully will come from the enhanced reporting and from the reporting of precursors. And then the last and equally important one is to provide support for those who are survivors of a fall from height, or the families of those who unfortunately have suffered a fatality as a result of fall from height. And what that is, from my point of view and from AIF's point of view, is us as an industry taking a holistic view on the entire industry from the start to finish, and being prepared to step up to the mark and say, as an industry, we are determined that we will make sure that the number of falls from height that cause fatalities and serious injuries goes down, and goes down to, I would like to get to zero. I don't know if that's perhaps being unrealistic, maybe not in my lifetime, but we can certainly make a start just now. One of my pet bugbears is the TV shows. What really troubles me is, with probably very few exceptions, all their work at height is absolutely abysmal. That they have no regard for guardrails, no regard for toe boards. Stuff is thrown together in the most shoddy form, and I would like to put it out. The industry, the work at height industry, would like to advise you, free of charge, how to do it, because I think that's people look at that and think that's okay. Right? If we could intervene in that and say, look, the only thing that you will ever see in any of these shows is proper work at height equipment being used properly, then I think that would be a step forward as well.
And people see what best practice
That's it. So I'm off my soapbox now.
It is embarrassing to see certain programmes and to see bad practice, and that's it. It is bad practice.
Other DIY shows are available.
It's worse when a certain person's standing on a building and then they do the wide pan, and you start to see actually their environment, and
And maybe that is that continual risk assessment. That is how we embed it into the culture, and you get responsible operatives. So we've got responsible client, responsible contractor, responsible operatives, because they're seeing it all the time. They're seeing it in a familiar home setting as well.
That's a very good point to end on, I think. Just like to thank all of the experts for joining us today. Just to remind viewers that a write-up of the roundtable discussion will appear in the June issue of Irish Magazine, and this roundtable discussion will appear as a two-part video which will be available on the website next month. And just like to thank everyone for attending.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.